Ok.
Ok, dai. Buonasera a tutti, grazie per partecipare a questo secondo nostro incontro, i nostri business talk. Questa sera abbiamo l'onore di dialogare con il paese Germania e lascio la parola al nostro consigliere Marcello per introdurre la nostra corrispondente. Grazie Marcello.
Grazie a te, Tania. Allora, procedo in inglese?
Sì, dai.
Come
Sì,
va
sì, sì.
benissimo. So, good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Karin Schopp, who is a distinguished expert in tax law with extensive experience in international taxation. She's our referee for the country Germany. She's a new entry in the IUYA community, so we are very proud of having her support for one of the most important country in Europe. She's the managing partner of her firm and a certified tax consultant, holding a specialization in international tax law, and expertise is widely recognized, and she plays a key role in various professional and academic organizations. Karin serves as the vice president for the Berlin Chamber of Tax Consultants and also chairs the Committee for Specialist Consultants for International Tax Law within the same institution. In addition to her professional commitments, she's actively involved in fostering education and research in taxation and accounting. She is a member of the Board of Trustees of the Association of the Promotion and Accounting and Tax Law in Berlin and Brandenburg, and contributes as a board member and treasurer of the Theodor Fontaine Society, dedicated to preserving the literary heritage of the renowned German writer. And today, we are going to talk about some of the key areas for investing and making enterprises in Germany, which are best strategies for entering the German market, regulatory and tax framework, which are the sectors with growth opportunities, and the cultural and business dynamics. So I am very pleased and honored to let Karin talk and start the meeting of today.
Ok, thank you Marcello, grazie a tutti, buonasera. Sono solo poche parole in italiano per adesso perché c'è il mio collega Joao, che è anche il mio business partner e lui farà la presentazione tutta in inglese. Lui è un consulente brasiliano, parla abbastanza varie lingue, devo dire, tranne italiano. E per questo facciamo tutta la presentazione in inglese, però se ci sono domande o qualcosa non è chiaro, possiamo anche cambiare all'italiano. Grazie Marcello per invitarci e anche Tanietta. E adesso cominciamo con la
Condivido.
presentazione.
Sto mettendo gli
Hand over
ultimi
to
passaggi.
Joao.
All right, can I have the first slide, please? So, buonasera, I think that's what to say about it. First of all, thank you so much as well for the chance and the time to meet all of you and to present a little bit of our beloved tax system. So if we go to the first slide where we have taxes in Germany, we try to kind of make a big summary of what is really relevant and what kind of like comes into a sort of a daily like necessity as well within our work and with our clients. I think you just jumped out of the presentation. If you could kindly go back,
Yeah.
at least we stopped sharing. Because I just would like to guide you through it because we have different types of taxes and different implications to any of that. If you go to slide number 2, that would be great. Perfect. All right, so as you can see, and I think that's not really very different from the system that you have in Italy, and something that's also very interesting for me, as I grew up in Brazil and did law in Brazil, our systems are kind of very similar when it comes to the organization, about having a código, about having a big handbook or a big book to coordinate all the legislation. But in Germany, interestingly, we have different types of codes. So we don't really have, I think it's called the diritto tributario. I don't think you really have this big book. Exactly. I don't think we have that. So we have different types of taxes organized in different codes, starting obviously with the income tax, corporate tax, trade tax, VAT, property tax, and so on. And not very often they kind of refer to one another. So sometimes really a big game of ping pong between the codes, what applies when, what kind of definition we extract from one code and put into the other. So it's really difficult, if not impossible, to read corporate tax and trade tax without the income tax legislation. So many definitions you can see jumping between the codes and references within the law. The same thing applies as well with VAT, but VAT, as I think as well in Italy, is a little bit like a world on its own, with different kind of very specific and very European related definitions. Property tax is also very interesting, especially for people that reside in Italy, for example, and have property in Germany. It's very interesting to as well to display changes within our system that have happened 2022 with a further kind of implication for the future, especially because in this particular type of tax, we have had a decision from our Supreme Court that affected all the legal definitions and the calculations when it comes to valuation of immovable property. The same thing applies to property trade tax, which is also very relevant for us. Interestingly, both property tax and property trade tax, and as well trade tax, they in detail organized by municipalities. I think it's a well-known fact. Germany is also a federal system, federal, state, municipalities, with some kind of details when it comes to Bonn, Bremen, and Berlin, I think. But that's another topic. And these type of taxes, ultimately, they kind of have a very big impact for these small cities or municipalities, and that's why they are also very relevant for some of the cities of Gemeinde, as you see that defined. So you see in the presentation some German words that we kind of have to refer to, as they are quite specific. The last type of tax that I just would like to refer to is the inheritance tax and gift tax. We still have this sort of taxes here in Germany. Some countries in Europe or around the world don't really have this type of regulations, but for us, it's really a cornerstone of our system, a very relevant source of income for our federation, and we still maintain this type of taxation. It's also very interesting, the level of detail that you can find within these two types of taxes. Yeah. So jump into the next slide. As I mentioned before about the sort of relevance and impact that some types of taxes have within our system, I just put this picture in the presentation for you to all have a sort of idea of how much money do we really make with these types of regulations, and it's quite substantial. As it's interesting how taxes are also intertwined with politics, with the implementation of new regulations, policies, and how you can really drive the whole country into a specific direction, depending on the type of taxes that we have. before in the first slide, I kind of just penciled down some of the most relevant ones. But if you just go across this whole picture, you can see many different type of, I would say, small taxes, which particularly some of them are actually quite interesting and shows a lot of our cultural background in Germany, especially with the, as you can see, Hundesteuer, which translates into the dog tax. So if you have a dog in Germany, you're obliged to register the dog and you pay a small, or depending on the type and the size of the dog, a different contribution for that. Another thing that's also very interesting, and for me, when I came to live in this country, was really kind of like a big cultural clash, was the church tax. So this is very interesting because legally here, the moment that you've been baptized, not necessarily in Germany, but anywhere else, you kind of belong to a religious organization. And the moment you get into the country and you go to make your registration within the city, they ask you, have you been baptized? And it doesn't really matter if you go to the church or not, but just the fact per se, that kind of creates the connection to a religious group that is obviously organized in the same, because obviously growing up in Brazil, I grew up Catholic. So I had to pay church tax until I really have to formally go to an office and really deregister myself from it. But only from that point on, then you don't have the obligation to pay any taxes for the church. I don't think you have something similar in Italy, but if you have, that would be actually quite interesting to see what sort of impact that would have. But this is kind of like, as you can see, the amounts and the relevance of the types of taxes that we have.
So the most important taxes are VAT, that is Umsatzsteuer. It's not translated in that picture. So you can see that the biggest one with close to 300 million euro is VAT. And then the next one is an income tax, Lohnsteuer, and income tax, Einkommensteuer, together is 340 million euros. That was in 2023. Gewerbesteuer is trade tax. We will speak about it later. And then Körperschaftssteuer is incorporate tax. We also will speak about later. All the others, of course, there are there, but how to say that? They are more based on the consume of something, alcohol, dogs, let's say, beer, and tobacco and all that. So it is not our daily business. It's more the daily business for persons who live, for example, in Hamburg or in the big cities where the ships arrive and all that. So they are dealing much more with these taxes. We mainly deal with VAT and income taxes and corporate tax and inheritance tax.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So next slide, please. Oh, would you like to give me kind of control? So maybe I can just share, but maybe I think because you're recording it, so maybe it's easier like that, right?
No, don't worry. I make you
Okay,
the
perfect.
secretary for you. Don't worry. It's a
Right,
pleasure.
okay, perfect.
It's a
Okay,
pleasure.
yeah, I just found I sounded okay. Next slide, please. But okay, when it comes to tax liability, how this whole thing comes to life, we have our major kind of centered concept about tax residency and about the possibility that you kind of dwell in this in the country for at least 6 months. So two kind of big concepts. Firstly, the possibility of having, I would say, a home or a flat or something that's available for you to use that per se creates a connection to define the tax liability in an unlimited way, meaning worldwide income has to be taxed or has to be declared in Germany. And the same applies for a habitual kind of abode or being in the country for more than 6 months. When it comes to this sort of definitions, it is our in practical terms, the fiscal authorities here, they really do ask questions. They really sometimes request photos. I mean, it's really kind of very relevant for us how to prove if you have a domicile in Germany, the residency, how many days you spend in the country, and not necessarily just working in the country. So this is like very defining element in our system. Everything kind of derives or emerges from this major concept. Perfect. Yeah. So next slide, please.
Well.
When it comes to income tax, so within the system and attached to the definition of income tax, we have different types of income, different sources of income, and you can see they are detailed and listed in this slide. The income tax being then the type of tax that's the most relevant after the VAT. So the first one, well, agricultural and forestry, self-employment work, employment, business entities, capital assets, rental, leases, and other types of income. They are all regulated there. And initially, if you think, oh, there's only 7 types of income, it's very interesting to see how the legislator or how the legislation here works, especially having a concept within a type of income sometimes derives the consequence for the application of another. Sometimes these types of income, they are subsidiary to another, meaning you might have rental income, but if you're connected to maybe a commercial or business entity, there's a declassification. We love that sort of thing in Germany, to have one concept and reconceptualize it or have a new category for that. And when what happens when this happens, the whole form of calculation for the income also changes. So it's very tricky sometimes to just say, oh, I'm just renting something, or I'm just using capital assets for this or that. Everything can turn to become commercial or business entity, having a huge implication in how to calculate taxes, and obviously having an implication about what kind of tax allowances we can use, and what do we do if we have losses for a specific year.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. So it is perhaps to make it clear or easy, we always start with that personal income tax. And as he explained in the beginning, it is not only the regulation for the income tax by itself, it's also there are many definitions which are then regulated in the incorporate tax system and in the trade tax system. And for that, for us, the income tax regulation is we start there and then we go to the others. Yeah, just to explain it, why it is so important. Yeah,
exactly.
So
the next slide, please. Oh yeah, yes, we are. So we are within a range of 0 until 45%. I have just put there some numbers based on the latest update within our income tax. And as you can see, we have brackets starting from 11,000, what we call Grundfreibetrag. If you earn until that amount, so there's no taxation to be executed, but the moment that you reach the amount and go over that, so there are different brackets. What is also very interesting within our income tax system is the possibility of doing, if you're married, a joint tax return, which sometimes implies the possibility of reducing the tax rate, I would say theoretically to half, but not always very profitable. So it's always kind of like a hit and miss in a way. You have to calculate and see what really happens. But we navigate between this range 0 to 45. And there is also something very interesting, which I think is also very cultural when it comes to tax law in Germany. Theoretically, if you're married and you have kids, you might be in a good position when it comes to the payment of income tax. If you're single, if you don't have kids, so yeah, so it might be a little bit more pricey, which is still kind of a sense of an attempt to stimulate, you know, the evolution of our society in a way, yeah, through taxes. So I think that's also very interesting, and is obviously related to the history of this country, is the definition of a solidarity surcharge, which is connected to our East and West, past or present. It depends how you see how history is developing. It's connected to the necessity of trying to not only help, but also invest new states, what we call it here in Germany. They mainly are connected to Saxon-Anhalt, Saxon, and the region like in the East. For historical and economic reasons. The amount is 5.5%. And I have read as well a very interesting decision. I think it went even to the Supreme Court, no, to the Supreme Court for the finance area here in Germany, because as it is connected to the history of the country, or this division between West and East. Someone, a foreigner, tried to plead that as we don't have, as foreigner, any connection to this history, we don't need to really pay this solidarity surcharge, but this has been obviously dismissed. So everyone is in it.
So it was established in 1990, and it was established to finance all the costs we had for the unification. And now, of course, people say, okay, we are unified since 30 years. What costs do we have now? And it is just, at the end, it is a part of the income tax, and it makes the income rate, tax rates we wrote here, it makes them higher.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end, it's there.
Perfect. Next slide, please. So now we jump quickly into the corporate tax. The corporate tax obviously is connected to the definition and existence of a corporation. I would assume that with the concept or the idea and definition of società limitada or something similar to that, you also have a very similar understanding of this type of taxes in Italy. Is obviously connected then to the necessity of creating a set of accounts and having a calculation for revenue, which is then reprogrammed or recalculated for tax purposes. So it's a very extensive calculation in the sense that starting from the revenue, there are some things that we have to add back to define what would become a taxable income, what will become a taxable amount. And for that, and this is one of the most interesting things as well in comparison to the income tax, is a flat rate, 15%. Additionally, 5.5% come into play, which is the solidarity surcharge, which also applies to companies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great tax.
Yeah. But we're not done when it comes to corporation taxation. What kind of taxes do really fall into that scope? If you jump into the next slide, there's something that's very interesting to be dealt with, and it causes sometimes a little bit of a confusion, especially from people from overseas, which is our concept of trade tax. The necessity or the need to pay trade tax is attached to having an entity, not necessarily only a corporation. It can be another type of entity, but having any commercial activity within the country leads you to pay trade tax. Even me, for example, if I start generating income that could be defined as business income, commercial income, I myself as an individual will need to pay trade tax. It's also very relevant because it's attached to the city. The whole money really stays on a very lower level of federation. That's why we are very avid and very keen in trying to obtain the payment for trade tax. The trade tax as well has a very interesting, singular, peculiar way to be calculated, which is we start with a revenue, we have add-ons and we have reductions and deductions and many different things that kind of come into play, and then we come into an amount that is then put into perspective into this 3.5%, which is a federal amount defined in the legislation that applies to everyone in the country. And then you jump into what we call the collecting rate. And this is connected, or there is a sort of explanation for that, for the rates, level of development of a specific city and so on. As you can see, I have there 410%, which is the collecting rate for Berlin, but it varies, starting, which is interestingly even defined in the constitution. The lowest it can be is 200%, and I think it can go into 480%. If you then calculate a GmbH, a limited company, so normally we would be talking about 15% corporate tax, 5.5% solidarity surcharge and trade tax, which adding 3.5% and 410% adds up to 1438%, meaning that we are dealing with a level of taxation of at least 31%.
Yeah. And therefore, the discussion here in Germany is that we are not interesting for foreign investors because the tax rate in the corporations is so high or higher than in other, at least European countries. In the first step, you think, okay, 15% is not that much. But then if you calculate all you have to add on, especially trade tax, you arrive at 31, 35%, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have no idea about the number that would apply for corporate tax in Italy, and if you guys would have a similar system when it comes to the trade tax. But obviously, if you put Germany with this number in comparison with other EU countries, it's not really the country that you would automatically jump and say, yeah, I really want to go there and start my business there. VAT, when it comes to the Umsatzsteuer and thinking about the regulations that we have throughout Europe, I think when it comes to how it's calculated and the rates, in a way quite self-explanatory, because obviously we share the same kind of understanding, thinking, and reasoning behind the system and the legislation. Obviously, our rates are different. We have 19% generally, with the possibility of having 7% for specific services and goods. And also we have an extensive list of things that are considered VAT exempt. One of the things that, for example, is kind of very interesting to emphasize is the possibility of having rental income applying VAT or not, but through the legislation, there's no VAT request to be paid. There's a definition in Germany that's also very interesting when it comes to the VAT world, is what we would see in the next slide. If you would be so gentle to jump to the next slide. Yeah, so it's the definition of small business, the Kleinunternehmer. I'm not sure if you have something similar to that in Italy. But if you are making until 25,000 a year, you do not need to collect VAT in your invoices. And this is also, interestingly, not forced upon, because you can also go to the fiscal authorities and say you actually want to do it regardless of this definition, regardless of making less than 25,000 in revenue, and within the range 25 first year and 100 in the next. But if you choose to be a Kleinunternehmer, great, you don't have to collect VAT, but obviously the consequence of that is it's not possible to collect any VAT in the sense of a refund from the expenses that you might incur, or things that you need for your business. If you choose, regardless of your revenue, to collect VAT, this also connects you to this option for at least 5 years. So ending at the end of the 5th year, then the fiscal authority would potentially, if you're still kind of within the threshold, maybe request you to either maintain, justify, or change your classification. And what is also interesting, I'm not sure, because obviously you have in Italy a different tax calendar. We have VAT assessment period that can be quarterly based, monthly based, or yearly. So that can also change. And depending on the amount of taxes that you have produced or amount of refund you have requested, the turners of this schedule can change, and that creates sometimes within our daily work a little bit of confusion, because we always need to double check who needs to do what and when. So yeah, it's very, very festive. So next slide. So we have the property tax. Similarly to the trade tax, this is also a type of or a source of tax that's connected to the city. That's why it's also so relevant for the municipalities to collect this. Obviously, it's connected to the fact that do you really have a property, but not necessarily only immovable property. Some other things can also fall within the scope of Grundsteuer or property tax, but mainly that. As you can see, you have different rates applying to what type of property do you own, and that is then connected to a Hebesatz, to this collecting rate, which obviously changes dramatically within the country. This is something that I mentioned, I think, talking about on the first slide, the decision at our Supreme Court. We had a system which defines specific rates and a certain method of valuation, but that was based in a calculation that was done in 1964. And obviously the world changed kind of substantially, or a little bit in some people's eyes. And we needed to redo this calculation, especially because not unusually some properties were valued to a certain amount in some parts of the country, and in others we would have a completely different valuation, and that put into the context about equality, fundamental rights. There was a clash, and that has been brought before the court, and upon this decision the whole system connected to property tax has changed. What is also interesting in connection with the property tax is we in Germany, we love documents and we're very bureaucratic, meaning that any type of change when it comes to the valuation of anything, we get, I would say, certificato, but we are really fans of that. So we have for one property sometimes a valuation for 2022, another one that is happening, and then not only the values defined in one document, the payment of the tax in another one, and losses in another one. So that creates sometimes a little bit of confusion on what is what, but that's what we're here for. It's very nice.
That's how it is. And the nightmare for us was the new value in 2022. That was really challenging because we had to value all the real estate in Germany and under different regulation. And we, in our office, we have clients from all over Germany. So they have all over houses and fabrics and hotels and you know, whatever. So that means first you had to verify how is the system, for example, in Munich, and how is the system, I don't know, in Kassel, and how is it in Berlin. And the federal system in Berlin, for example, it's the federal system, but the Bavarians, they always want to do something extra because they're special. They always feel special in Germany. And so they had, they have another system. The same is in Baden-Württemberg, which is the area of Freiburg, Stuttgart, and all that. And the real reason behind this different systems is that the rich parts of Germany, they, at least they had the interest that their inhabitants pay less property tax. And that was the real reason for all this chaos in 2022. And now the Steuermesszahl means tax rate on this value, which was established in 2022, is now established by every single city. So we have so many different tax rates, which we have to control and all that. So this little property tax became an incredible administration thing. So under this point of view, a real nightmare for us.
Yeah,
You can
exactly.
say that. Yeah. Okay, we have one person here who's doing only that together with me. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So I cannot hear that word anymore.
Yeah, and it's sometimes kind of almost impossible to explain when you don't live here, but why these things kind of came into life
Incredible.
and how they, you know, kind
Yeah.
of belong to each other.
Yeah, yeah,
This is our system.
yeah.
Yeah. So next slide.
The last one.
The last one, yeah.
That's right.
We have a very interesting calendar in the sense that it's not just one fixed date. So to everyone, just send your tax return, so and so and so. We have a date or a deadline normally until 7 months after the end of the year, the fiscal year, for tax returns to be produced. But when you are under the umbrella or with the assistance of tax advisor, this deadline gets extended, but substantially extended to the in a way that sometimes it creates even a little bit more of confusion when we have clients with connections overseas, as the calendars, they don't really match. The schedules are very different. So just to give you an example, a tax return for us now for the fiscal year of 2023 has to be done until end of May 2025. And a tax return for the fiscal year 2024, if it's done with our assistant, has to be done until April 2026. And so goes on and on. You have almost a whole year more to produce the documentation. And depending of the deadlines and schedules that the clients have overseas, we have, most of the time, we have to hurry up because it's a completely different understanding and different deadlines to accomplish. And I think Italy is also quite very early in the year. So this causes also sometimes a little bit of, you know, some kind of overtime for us.
Okay. So that was
Sounds
a
good.
short overview,
Yes.
right?
Sounds good. Many thanks, Joao,
And
for
now-
your explanation. It was clear, very, very good. And I just to underline something that the scheme is very, very similar to the Italian one, because we have also the income tax, corporate tax, VAT, the property tax. The scheme is very, very similar, and also the tax calendar is similar because annual return must be filed by the 30 June, more or less. And also the percentage and the rate are similar because, for example, the income tax in Italy is the maximum rate is the 33%, and in Germany is the 35%. So it's very similar. And also the VAT application is in Italy the 22%, and in Germany is lower, but more or less the same schemes and the same rate, the same percentage. If I have a question for you, why one corporate could choose Germany as an investment? Germany could be attractive for example, an Italian corporate, an Italian businessman. Just to finalize this presentation.
I'm not sure if this is the, let's say, if it is the right decision to go to Germany for tax purposes.
Okay.
I would say no.
Okay.
But if you invest in Germany, then especially if you invest in the real estate sector, then it is you have definitely a big chance to do that with foreign incorporates, means Italian, for example, who buy the real estate here in Germany, and then you go under the line of the limited taxation, which means you do not have a commercial business here, and so you pay only 15%. That is really a good deal, let's say. And this structure is quite used together with Luxembourg or the Netherlands, because the incorporates there, they pay nearly no taxes. And when they cash out, so when they pay dividends, and the owners of these companies are others, so the clear holding structure, then they are able to cash it out without paying capital gain tax. So this is, for example, a system how you can invest in Germany in the real estate sector. The foreign corporations. When you change to the German, if you establish a German corporation and you're doing that, then you're in the commercial tax system, and then you pay that on top.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. So it is more, the question is more when you want to do something in Germany, when you want to establish a business in Germany for, I don't know, various reasons, because you have a good market, or you have a good administration, or clear rules, or something like that, then you have to organize it very well before you invest, before you are doing that step, because the difference of the tax rate can be quite high.
Yeah, it can
Could
be
be quite
substantial. Yeah,
Can be substantial.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I would not go to Germany for tax reasons. No, not at all.
This is a provocation, because normally the company are very focused on the taxation, but it is not the first focus that can guide the business. For For example, Germany could be attractive for other things that you explained before.
Yeah. And if you go on the focus with, if you do something or investments only for tax proposals, or if you're looking for the best way to do that, Germany definitely is not the place to go. Good places are Switzerland, of course, or some parts.
Yes. Germany is not a fiscal event, so we know very well.
No, completely not. And you know, the German administration hates that. So if they think that you're doing something like that, which is going in direction of tax fraud, they kill you. So perhaps not like not that soon, but they will do that. On the long run, they will do that. And you know that we have a big problem in Germany with the VAT tax fraud. Because Germany has always been a country which cashed out the VAT quite quickly, and so they choose Germany as a country where they cashed out the revenue of VAT, and for that or in that part now we are much more. Let's say strictly, the administration is much more strictly before they give you a VAT tax number, and they control much more. And the same is for money laundering. So we had for a long time, we did not honestly had rulings. We had, but it was never the main topic for us. And now we have that implementation for the tax consultants, for the lawyers, for the notaries, and it made our business also a little bit difficult because, of course, no one comes to you and tells you, "Oh, I have a money laundering system. Would you advise me how to organize it best?" So that is not, at least. For the main consultants, it is not the business, but anyway, you can be involved even if you don't know that. And for that, controlling system is much, let's say, stricter than it was 5 years ago. Yeah. And sometimes it's a little bit ridiculous also, but okay. We do that, or we have to do that. Yeah.
I also have a question. As we know, in order to work with another country, you don't have to move physically or in business terms to that country. I wanted to focus on the perspective of Italian companies that want to work with Germany. And in this case, what do you think are the most attractive sectors for Germany? Looking to Italy, I mean, maybe in terms of export, actually. So we're talking about, I don't know, fashion, food, or other businesses that could be interesting for Italian companies who want to deal with Germany and sending their products, not opening a company in Germany itself.
I understand that. So I'm not sure there is or what the market is honestly in the food sector or in that. I know that there is a lot of let's say trade for milk and agriculture products between the north of Italy and the south of Germany, and also Austria, I think, is involved in that. And production of, I don't know, cheese and all that kind of, but industrial made food. No? In the smaller sector, it is all about, let's say, organic, more or less. So the German market, or let's say the good prices here, and the persons are honestly interested in organic food, and I don't know, in a way, healthy, if you can say that it is healthier or not, at least not industrial food. And this is for the small entities, and that works very well here. The rest in Germany, I think what is really requested is new technology, fashion, and finance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
these are the main things. And then what also could be is production of any, a part of the industrial production, because the production costs in Germany are really high. The wages are high, social security is very high. There are very high rates, and for that reason, a lot of German industrial production goes out of the country.
Yeah.
They go to the eastern part of Europe because the wages are lower and the social security system is not that strict like it is in Germany. And it could be also for the Italians, it could be interesting to do some pre-production.
Okay.
Not for the automobile sector, because that is really, let's say, I don't know, perhaps in Italy not, because you have Ferrari or something like that. But for us, it is BMW, Audi, and all that. In their technology, they're too slow and too old for the Chinese.
Yeah.
So right now we see really a big wave of Chinese electro cars and all that. Yeah, the other sectors in Germany is real estate, of course, even if it is in parts high priced, depends on where you are or where you invest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about wine? I mean, in Italy, there's a lot of companies making wine, of course. And
Yeah.
do you think it would be
But
an
yeah,
interesting
I
product?
Exactly.
I mean, how much? I know Germany has beer, of course.
Yes. It's
What about
there is a
wine?
place. There is a marketplace for wine or just for beer?
Of course, there is a marketplace for all, not only organic, but for all regional products, good wine from Sicily or I don't know, from that era. There is a market. In all, at least in Hamburg, Munich, Berlin, Cologne, in all that cities, they love these products from Italy, from France, mostly from that part. So there is a big market as long as it is not industrial. For the industrial wine market, it is not that interesting, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, they are anyway just organized. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tania, se ci
So
sono
if you know
domande...
someone from Germany who wants to establish a winery or something like that in Berlin, I have a little commercial place where they could sell it also if you want. No, but that is an interesting market to organize it. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So Tania, se ci sono domande, diciamo, dai ragazzi che ci seguono, se no...
Vediamo in chat se qualcuno ha qualche domanda.
Il silenzio in chat, se qualcuno ha una domanda la faccia ora o taccia per
Esatto, alzi la
sempre.
manina.
Piano, no? Sì, ecco.
Sono timidi i nostri associati.
They're very shy.
TBD.
Or the presentation was perfect, so that there are
Right.
no doubts.
Okay. Our system might be so terrifying. I won't really.
No.
It's too low way, but okay for the structure. And then of course we can do, if you have topics, if you have special questions, how to invest in the real estate market, for example, in Germany. So we could do another round if you want another meeting.
would be lovely, of course.
Yeah, or if anyone else is interested in, or I don't know, Joa is doing a lot of with artists and influencers and all that. So if you have Italians who are around the world and who are also involved in Germany, that is also a very interesting part. And we know for our experience that they do a lot of mistakes and that they really have to organize themselves. So perhaps the colleagues have some clients in that market and okay, anyway, we are always open for questions or for cooperation.
So thank you for your time. Thank you for your explanation, Joao and Karin. This was a very, very, very good talk. Many, many thanks. And niente, Marcello, secondo me direi che per oggi abbiamo finito. E grazie mille. It's very clear. Grazie mille.
Grazie a voi.
E niente, ci vediamo per i nostri associati settimana prossima di lunedì invece con l'ultimo paese che sarà la Francia. E grazie mille a tutti, grazie ancora per qualsiasi cosa, poi scrivete a IUYA, contattateci, vi metteremo in contatto con Karin e Joao nel caso ci fosse bisogno di qualche altra spiegazione o opportunità di fare business. Grazie mille, grazie.
A presto, buona serata, grazie
Buona
ancora
serata.
cari.
Grazie, buona serata.
Buona serata.
Buona serata, arrivederci.
Ciao Joao, grazie.